If there's one question that anybody going into an informational interview should at least keep in mind, what would that question be?
In the effort to build your network as large as possible, it's always.
Before we dive in, if you enjoy this kind of content, either on personal finance or learning about your career in Washington, D.C., go ahead and hit that like button and press subscribe to be updated whenever new personal finance videos are released. Let's get into the questions. When you're networking, you can meet people in a reception, but there's also this informational interview. What is an informational interview?
An informational interview is your goals are twofold. One, to get information about that person that helps you find your job or internship. And two, to develop a relationship with that person so that you can come back to them and then ask them to send your resume to an office or recommend you for a position.
What are some of those tips and tricks that you can tell somebody who is trying to book informational interviews with individuals?
Everyone in DC thinks they're the busiest person in America. Defer to them on when they can do it. Ask for 30 minutes and assume they're only going to give you 15. Especially people on Capitol Hill are driven by their bosses. And if their boss needs something, they have to cancel. Be flexible, but assume it's 15 to 30 minutes, right? And I don't think that's like an extraordinary amount of time to ask for.
How do you plan where to meet up with them once you have established a time and date?
I'll say pre-COVID, I'd say like even now as things are opening back up, in person is always better. If people aren't comfortable doing in person just yet, ask for a Zoom. There is Zoom fatigue, but seeing somebody, their face is much better than a phone call. If you can only get a phone call, take it. Especially in person is key. And if you're an intern on the Hill, ask for in person. Even if you need to push it a couple of weeks when they're back or something, or their boss is in town that you get coffee. Just characterize it as a coffee, a quick call, a quick coffee. To pick your brain.
Let's say you ask someone or someone asks you to coffee. Should they offer to pay for coffee? How do you naturally approach that if you do ask them to meet at a coffee shop?
If you are financially constrained and you can't afford buying everyone coffee, I would say get there early and buy your own coffee and sit there. If you can afford, wait. And then at least make the offer. It's just the action. They might say, no, you're just an intern, I'll pick it up, and just let them do it. But say, you gave me so much time, can I get you a coffee? That is like starting the conversation well, right? Again, if you can't afford it, you can avoid it by just getting there early, sitting at a table, letting that person go get their coffee and joining you. I wouldn't get too hung up on it though. First is that you've done the research, you've looked them up on LinkedIn and on the internet to figure out what their career path was. So you're not wasting that precious 20, 30 minutes you get with them, having them tell you about their career. Come armed with that knowledge to say, hey, I noticed you did this internship and got this job. I'm looking to do the exact same thing. Can you explain to me a little bit about that? And your next question is, I noticed that you handle these certain issues for your member of Congress. Can you kind of walk me through your day-to-day? And so you're invested in them and how they got there. And then you say, well, here's my goal. I want to do X and Y. What would you advise? So you're getting all that information. And then the next part of it is keeping that connection fresh. You're asking them for another person they would recommend that you reach out to. And then that builds you this huge web of people that you know. You send them that email, thank you, profusely thanking them for their time, telling you they gave you great ideas and attaching a resume to it. And then keeping that relationship fresh. Then you could rely back on them for a recommendation for a job that they might know somebody in the same congressional delegation or within the same party in that body.
During the DC job hunt, between like 1 to 10, how important are these informational interviews?
Informational interviews are a 10 out of 10. Only a very small percentage of getting a job is finding out about the job. A majority of it is networking your way to that job. So in order to network your way to that job, you have to have people that are willing to send your resume in once you've always applied via the normal channel. You click on the website, you send the email to apply normally. But then you have multiple people sending your resume in, recommending you for the position. And it takes time to build up that network. To think about it. If you're targeting like the House Republican Conference or the Senate Democratic Caucus, you need to have multiple people that have multiple inroads into there that share a common connection with you, going back to our point earlier, that are from the same hometown, that you went to the same undergrad, et cetera. It takes a very long time to do that. So the sooner you start it, the better. And that you can't let it lapse. Like just because you got a job doesn't mean you don't continue to network. Go to lunch with people, get a coffee, just go back to that spreadsheet and open it up, make some notes. You're not in it. You don't have to be in a job search to keep notes of who you met, their background, and how they might be able to help you in a future job search.
So when they're reaching out to you, what's that question that you get asked the most?
It's tough to say one question. I think people think that there's a secret. Well, really, what have you done in your career to really get these jobs? It's like, everything I say every day. Go read the article on our website, go watch the videos. It's all about networking. It's networking your way to that job. It's building a network that enables you to do that. And it's about the attention to detail of keeping track of everyone you've met, sending thank you notes with your resume attached, doing the things that make you stand out like a handwritten thank you note, keeping relationships fresh and being nice to everyone. That is the formula. And there's no one thing that some of us are keeping secret. The only one time I've ever not posted a job on my website was for a job that I really wanted. I didn't end up getting. So
Oh.
literally, I even posted the job I'm getting right now. I posted on my website. So go to my website. You'll see every job there is in the world. But you've got to network your way to that job. That is the key.
If there's one question that anybody going into an informational interview should at least keep in mind, what would that question be?
In the effort to build your network as large as possible, it's always, thank you so much for your time. You give me such great advice. Is there somebody else you would suggest I touch base with? Because without that, you're not able to grow your network. You're already going to get through a lot of good information by asking about their career and asking how they got there and advice. But at the end, it's got to be, you've been so grateful. I'm so grateful for your time. You gave me so much great advice. Is there someone else you suggest I touch base with? And remember, it could go down the path of like, I want to focus on environmental policy. Oh, do you know anyone in the environmental field that I would touch base with? Or, oh, do you want someone from our hometown or our school that you would put me in touch with? But keep it broad. Let them go any direction they want. And then remember, always follow up with a thank you email with your resume attached. It makes it easy to them. And in that email, after that thank you, you're reminding them who they said they put you in touch with. That is the key.
And great news is that Tom and I have created a free informational interview guide. The link can be found in the description below.
One of them was where
Spill the tea, Tom.
I got to describe it party agnostic and not let the person know I'm talking about them.
Of course.
But there's an individual who not once but twice did not show up for a coffee, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt the first time, and now I just won't even reply to emails from that person. And they're just I don't know what their deal was. I don't know if they're dealing with something else, but at least shoot me a note saying you're not coming or apologize.
Yeah.
But it's like I had to proactively reach out to that individual the first time they didn't show, and they apologized, and then they didn't show the next time. I'm like, okay, yeah. The point of networking is that person's giving you their time. You want to go out of your way to make it easy for them, like attaching your resume to the thank you note. And you want to be appreciative of their time because they're giving you their time. That is extremely valuable. That was a bad one.
Yeah, I was about to say, in general, it's one of those things where you're doing them a favor by meeting with them, and not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Oh, I will. And if that's the impression, how can they ever vouch for you to be like, this person is reliable? She can show up. Just show up.
Show up for a coffee. Right.
And in DC, I think half the battle is actually just showing up. And for anybody watching, if you set up a time, follow through, or at least email if something happens. Don't just not show up.
And just keep in mind here, this is one critical part that I left out earlier. Everyone in DC has been in your shoes. They've been trying to get their start on the Hill. They've been trying to advance in their career. Even the chief of staff of the White House, the minority leader's chief of staff, doesn't matter. They've all been there. So don't feel bad asking people to do it. You got to ask. Some people might be too busy. They might not respond to you, but you have to ask. Most people will remember the other folks who did this for them, and so that they're going to do it for you. Let's cover what we covered earlier. Don't be too annoying. Be persistent up the line of being annoying. Ask people to do this. It's a part of the culture. You're not putting them out by asking them.
As this is a personal finance channel, throughout your time in DC, do you have any personal finance tips for people who are wanting to enter this space?
I would say be very conservative with your money. Put a lot in savings. You never know what happens in an election. Your boss could think they have a path to victory, but then end up losing. I've seen a lot of folks that have been unemployed for many months. I myself worked for President Obama's reelection campaign with the assumption that I worked there, that I would get a job in the administration afterwards. Turns out I was unemployed for 4 months. Before I got my job in the private sector. Thank goodness I had saved enough that we were about to have our second kid that I was able to kind of float along. And then before I got my job, and this is when I was running my own jobs website. But you never know what's going to happen after an election, especially in the cyclical nature of every 2 years, the voters get to decide the fate of the elected official, and every 4 years in administration. So I think that being conservative in your spending that would enable you to float along for a few months without a job is key.
And don't forget, Tom and I created a free informational interview guide. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.